What happens when hope seems lost deep in a dark, unforgiving forest? Diem's desperate struggle for survival after being injured and left alone takes a dramatic turn when an old man with ancient healing knowledge appears. Despite fierce infection and near-fatal wounds, their bond and timely help bring a fragile chance at life. Join us as we uncover this gripping tale of resilience, compassion, and the fight against all odds. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to follow Diem's incredible journey from despair to hope. Deep within the dense forest, where sunlight barely pierced through the thick canopy, Diem found herself lying on a bed of rough leaves and soft moss, cradled tenderly by the hands of an elderly man whose face bore the marks of time and wisdom. The old man's eyes, gentle yet resolute, reflected a quiet determination to protect and nurture her in the heart of this wild, unforgiving wilderness. Despite the biting chill of the nights and the relentless buzz of insects, Diem felt an unexpected warmth from this simple but unwavering care. Each morning, the old man would rise before dawn, his movements slow but deliberate, as he gathered herbs, roots, and leaves from the surrounding forest. His knowledge of the plants was profound, passed down through generations, a legacy of healing arts that he practiced with reverence. With careful hands, he prepared poultices and brews, explaining softly in his native tongue. Though Diem understood little of his words, she was comforted by the tone and the tenderness in his voice. He would then gently clean her wounds, the raw cuts on her legs still tender from days of neglect and hardship, before applying the herbal mixtures to soothe the pain and prevent infection. Though the old man's care was meticulous and sincere, the harsh realities of Diem's time in the forest weighed heavily on her fragile body. The days had been filled with hunger, thirst, and the constant battle against fatigue. She remembered the desperate hours wandering through thick undergrowth, the rough bark scraping her skin, and the sharp stones bruising her feet. The nights were no kinder, cold and lonely, haunted by the distant calls of wild animals and the eerie rustling of leaves. Her injuries, sustained long before she met the old man, had worsened as she had no means to properly clean or treat them. The pain was a constant reminder of her vulnerability, and though she tried to stay strong, her spirit waned as her body grew weaker. Despite her silent suffering, Diem's heart clung fiercely to the flicker of hope that the old man's presence ignited. In the midst of this wilderness, she was no longer alone. His quiet attentiveness, the way he adjusted her blanket when she shivered, the way he listened as she whispered her fears in the dark, was a balm to her aching soul. The old man was not just a healer of wounds, but a guardian of hope in a place where despair threatened to consume her. Yet, the forest's unforgiving nature continued to test her limits. The scarcity of food and clean water, combined with the untreated injury, sapped her strength day by day. Though the old man's herbal remedies brought some relief, they could not entirely replace the proper medical care Diem desperately needed. Her breathing grew shallow, her fever more frequent, and a quiet dread began to settle in the pit of her stomach. She knew that without urgent help, her condition might deteriorate beyond repair. In those silent, fragile moments between dusk and dawn, Diem would stare up at the tangled branches above, her thoughts drifting to memories of home, of loved ones, of warmth and safety, and a fierce determination to survive. She clung to the old man's kindness, to the hope that somehow, beyond this dense forest and these agonizing days, a new chapter awaited her. For in this small corner of the wilderness, under the care of a stranger's gentle hands, Diem's fragile life still flickered, waiting for a chance to be saved. As the days passed, Diem's condition worsened despite the old man's unwavering care. The wound on her leg, initially a painful but manageable injury, had grown darker, swollen, and oozing with a sickly discharge that stained the coarse bandages. The forest's dampness and the relentless insects only aggravated the infection, turning her once hopeful struggle into a battle for survival. Each breath became heavier, each movement more painful, until even the faintest touch sent waves of agony coursing through her body. Her fever raged with a merciless intensity, flushing her cheeks with heat and drenching her in cold sweats that left her trembling in the chill of the forest night. Her eyes, once bright with quiet resilience, now glazed over with exhaustion and pain, clouded by the creeping shadows of delirium. She murmured incoherent words, caught between moments of lucidity and drifting away into a haze of suffering. The old man watched helplessly, his withered hands trembling as he applied cooling herbs to her burning forehead, whispering prayers to unseen spirits for her recovery. It was clear to him, even if the wild surrounding them did not yield the mercy they so desperately needed, that time was running out. He knew the signs all too well, the spreading redness creeping up her leg, the foul smell that betrayed the depth of infection, the weakness that stole away her strength like the slow erosion of a river over stone. If the infection wasn't checked soon, gangrene would take hold, and with it, the very limb that kept her alive might be lost. But the old man was no stranger to such battles. His years in the forest had taught him the delicate balance between nature's gifts and its dangers. Drawing on the ancient knowledge of Eastern herbal medicine, he began to prepare stronger remedies, bitter decoctions to fight the infection, poultices infused with cleansing roots, and salves to stimulate healing. With painstaking care, he cleaned the wound again, removing decayed tissue and renewing the bandages with soothing herbs to ease her pain. Still, he knew these efforts could only buy precious time. Without the advanced care of a hospital, Diem's chances would diminish with every passing hour. Her life hung by a thread, tethered to his knowledge but dependent on intervention beyond the forest's grasp. The old man's resolve hardened. He would do everything in his power to get her out of the wilderness and into the hands of those who could save her. One dawn, as a mist curled through the trees, the old man noticed a faint flicker of consciousness return to Diem's eyes. She weakly clasped his hand, her voice barely audible but filled with hope. "Please, help me get out of here." Though her body was fragile and her spirit battered, her will to live shone through the haze of pain. Summoning the strength left in his aged frame, the old man set about seeking aid from nearby villagers. He knew they held the key to the distant world of medicine and machines, a world that might rescue Diem from the brink of tragedy. With a mixture of urgency and hope, he sent out messengers, and soon, a group of villagers arrived, bringing with them blankets, food, and most importantly, the promise of a journey to the hospital. As they carefully lifted Diem onto a makeshift stretcher, the old man's heart both ached and soared, aching for the battle she had endured, and soaring with the fragile hope that her suffering might soon end. The forest, which had held her captive for so long, now seemed to watch silently as she was carried towards salvation. In that moment, beneath the towering trees and the early morning sky, the fragile line between life and death began to shift. And while the road ahead remained uncertain, one truth was clear: Diem was not alone in her fight, and the old man's wisdom and compassion had given her a fighting chance to reclaim her life. The journey out of the forest was slow and arduous. The villagers, guided by the old man's intimate knowledge of the terrain, carefully navigated the uneven paths, their every step filled with urgency and care. Diem lay on the stretcher, her face pale and damp with sweat, her breath shallow but steady, clutching the old man's hand whenever she awoke from the fevered haze. The forest that had once felt like a prison now seemed to release its grip, its dark shadows giving way to the faint, hopeful light of the outside world. When they finally emerged from the dense foliage, the sharp contrast between the wild, untamed forest and the sterile, clinical brightness of the hospital was overwhelming. Diem's senses, dulled by days of pain and starvation, were assaulted by the unfamiliar sounds, the distant hum of machines, the hurried footsteps of doctors and nurses, and the antiseptic scent that filled the air. Despite her weakened state, a glimmer of hope stirred within her. Here, at last, was the place where her wounds could be properly treated, where her life might be saved. The old man stayed by her side, offering quiet reassurance, his presence a steady anchor amidst the chaos. Doctors immediately took over, swiftly assessing her condition with a blend of concern and determination. The infection had spread deeper than anyone had dared hope, threatening not only her leg but her entire body. They worked quickly, administering antibiotics, performing necessary debridement to remove dead tissue, and carefully monitoring her vital signs. The battle was far from over, but the odds had shifted in Diem's favor. Throughout the days that followed, Diem remained under close observation. The pain was intense, the treatments exhausting, but with every passing hour, her body responded to the care. Her fever subsided, her strength gradually returned, and the infection began to retreat. The doctors marveled at her resilience, often noting that it was not just medicine but the fierce will to live and the love embodied in the old man's care that fueled her recovery. The old man, once a solitary figure of the forest, became an integral part of her healing journey. Nurses often found him quietly sitting beside her bed, preparing herbal teas he brought from home, blending ancient wisdom with modern medicine. Diem treasured his stories of the forest, his calm voice weaving a tapestry of hope and life beyond the sterile hospital walls. Their bond transcended words, a profound connection forged in the crucible of survival. As weeks turned into a month, Diem took her first tentative steps, the leg that had once been on the brink of amputation now slowly regaining its strength. The scars would remain, both visible and unseen, but so would the memories of compassion and courage that had carried her through the darkest days. She knew the path ahead would not be easy, but she was no longer alone, and that made all the difference. In the quiet moments, Diem reflected on the journey, from the cold isolation of the forest to the warm embrace of healing hands. She thought of the old man's unwavering kindness, the villagers who had answered the call, and the doctors who fought alongside her. Each had played a vital role in saving not just her leg, but her life and spirit. Her heart swelled with gratitude and a renewed determination to live fully, to honor the gift she had been given. The forest, once a place of fear and despair, had become a symbol of resilience, and the old man a guardian angel whose ancient knowledge bridged the gap between suffering and salvation. Diem's story was far from over, but as she looked toward the future, she carried with her a profound truth: even in the depths of darkness, the light of compassion, wisdom, and hope could shine through, guiding her toward a new beginning.